Good morning and welcome back to Planner Craft. I'm Natalie and today we're going to be doing some stamping with a ScanNCut. So let's get started. Today I'm using stamps from Chocolate Baroque and it's a heart full of love is the collection I'm going to be using. And I want to talk a little bit about choosing stamps for using for your scanner. So first of all, let's do some morning. So morning Mum, morning Jill, morning Deb. And it looks like multi-stream chats may be working today, so let's give it a go. And morning Delcy. We'll see. Is it going to come through? Is it going to behave? Morning Sally Ann. Morning Linda. Okay. So first of all, I thought I would talk a little bit about choosing stamps to work with. Now, when we're working with different stamps, there's going to be lots of different styles, so I may not be able to cover them all today, but hopefully we'll be able to get through quite a few. So I've stamped some images to talk about to start with, and then I'm going to do a project after. So morning Tracy and morning Thea. Okay. So first image that we have here is just an outline stamp. Now so long as this stamp is nice and dark and has a solid line all the way around the outside, then you will be able to scan that perfectly. Oh, that's a bit odd that you're losing sound. Is everybody else's sound okay? Or is there something weird going on? I won't be surprised because we have BT are working outside again. That's always a bad sign. And good morning Ruth. But that's fine, Pauline. If you need to go, you need to go. You can always catch up. It's freezing. Oh dear, that's not good. Is anybody else having problems? Because I know Clarity were having issues with their stream this morning. So it may just be a Facebook thing. If somebody's watching on YouTube, let me know if it works okay, and I'll be able to see that in comments because I've got the multi-stream working today. Yay! So it's fine for you, Deb. It's not good for you here. There you go. Mum said it's okay on YouTube. How odd that some of you are getting it and some of you aren't, because Clarity's were having trouble with their stream, but it was playing fine for me on computer, whereas other people were finding they were having to go to mobile to watch. It was all very bizarre. So if you miss anything, then just don't be afraid to ask questions and I will go back over. So as I was saying, with an outline stamp, it's fairly straightforward. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Sue. Okay, those of you that are having issues, either try it on a different device. So if you're watching on a computer, try it on a tablet, and you may find that works. If you can, watch it on YouTube. We're over there too, live at the same time, and we're also live on Twitch. So hopefully one of those three should work for you. Failing that, if you take the playhead back a few seconds, then usually that allows enough time for the buffering to catch up. Okay, so Deb's watching me on the TV on Facebook, and that's fine. It's Facebook, so he says I come to YouTube. Okay. Well, I'll keep the multi-stream chat open so I can see both sets of comments anyway. And if you do have any questions after the stream, then just drop me a message or put a message to Plannercraft and I will pick it up from there. It's odd, isn't it? I think it's just Facebook today. It's having an off day. But you never know. It's always a bit of a gamble when you go live. So next type of a stamp that we have this kind of lovely image stamp here. But if we look really closely, and I'm going to bring this a little bit closer to the camera for you, you can see that in this top little section here, if it will focus, come on, focus, there we go, we've got a broken line. Now this is where we can start to get issues with it starting to scan inside the shape instead of around it. So what we can do to help that is if we colour first with our broken images, usually we find that that's enough. If not, just go round that edge with a pencil. So that could be a coloured pencil, it could be a watercolour pencil, it could just be a normal graphite pencil, and just darken that edge just so it's a bit easier for it to pick up. Okay, solid area stamping. Now these stamps tend to work better with either a hybrid ink or pigment ink to try and get that nice solid background effect. So here what I've done is I've actually stamped it twice. So the first time I wiped my ink pad across, and the second time I patted. But to be honest, it could probably do with a third impression to get the true dense colour of the ink. But what you're looking for again is, are there any broken edges? And yes, we can see that if we go down to this flower section just here, there's a couple of bits where it just misses. So again, you would want to go and strengthen that. If you can't find us on YouTube, it is under Planner Craft. So Tracy, could you possibly post a link, or Deb, if you could post a link? I'm not sure if I can do it from here. I think I'm read only, sadly. Let me see if I can do it to Facebook though. So let me do that. That should be right. We'll just check that goes up and comes up right. Come on, show me my comment. There we go. Just in case it's done something a little bit weird, I will just do that again then. Because it should come up with a little link underneath. So you're going to pop up the little thumbnail. Who knows? But hopefully that last post should work for you, Sue. And then that takes you through to our page on YouTube. And then our live stream should be at the top, hopefully, fingers crossed. So let's show you a couple of ways that we can do it. So the first one is to just use a normal technical pencil. And I'm just going to go around and just strengthen that edge. So here again we've got a break between the solid area here and our outline. So we can just strengthen that edge. Now if you want to go through and do your inside elements too, that's fine. But what we're mainly looking at is that very outside line, so just make sure that there's no breaks. So that you have a nice solid outline for it to pick up. Now, let's say something like this heart here, where we've got this kind of dotted section here. Now, if we were to put an outline in, that will start to change the look of the stamp a little, but it might be that we just want to colour it. So, if you don't want to do all of your colouring at once, then you can just use just that colour to kind of pull that together. So, for instance, maybe that you're not sure that that's necessarily the right image for your card, and you don't want to waste too much time colouring. We can just do just that small section there. I'm just going to blend that out and round. Same here. So don't ever think that you have to do the full colouring if you don't want to at this point. Okay, and you could do that wherever you've got a section of the image that isn't quite dark enough. So you want to literally check all the way around here that everything is joined and that you can see a nice strong outline all the way around. So let's say we get to here and we think there's a little bit of a gap there. Let's just bridge that gap. And then I'm going to fade that out. And continue that colour. Now when we're colouring like this, where we know we're going to want to come back and add more colour, then you want to keep your pencil work nice and light, so that you can always have that opportunity to come back. Oh, you usually get issues on my lives, Thea. That's really odd that it suddenly started doing that. That's not good. I could understand if it's just like changed since we've lowered the frequency of the streams a bit. But it's quite hard to keep up with doing it every day. Okay, so we've done our pencil version here, our coloured version here, and we can take that across to our scanner. So when we're scanning our images, we don't have to use the scan mat. The times that I use the scan mat, if I'm doing something that is photo based, where I don't want to damage the actual photo. If it's something that's fragile, so for instance, if I've done a drawing on, to say, cartridge paper or something like that, where it's a bit thinner, then I will tend to use the scan mat to scan that in, rather than using an adhesive mat, just so that I'm not damaging my original. If you're using something like lace, for instance, you might want to use the scan mat for that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop the piece that I've just stamped onto the mat. Okay, like so. Now, another thing that you want to keep an eye out for is, if I move my mat up a little bit, is you want to make sure that you've got a fair amount of distance between the edge of your card and the edge of the image. Now, if they're too close on the actual card, just move your card in a fraction, and I use the grid on the mat to line it up, one square in from the left and one square down from the top. But here I've left quite a big border anyway, so we should be all right. Okay. So we'll turn on the ScanNCut, and I'm going to grab an eraser pencil. So when I'm using my machine, I tend to use an eraser pencil for my stylus instead of the one that comes with it, and I just find that gives me just a little bit more control than the actual plastic tool. So we're going to go OK for our initial startup, and let's swap views. I'm going to go to close cam, and then we can see our machine up close. I'm going to offer my mat up to the machine, and I'm going to load that in. Now I've seen quite a few posts recently about mats not being read and things like that. If you have a mat and you know it's the correct one for your machine and it's not reading, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be down to your scan glass being dirty. So you can just watch the video that Ian did on actually cleaning the scan glass and get that fixed that way. If you're actually struggling with your mat warping, then that will be down to your rollers. So that's when you need to be cleaning your rollers and just giving them a little bit of TLC. So I'm going to go to scan. Now when we're scanning, we have 3 main options that we're going to be using if we ignore canvas for now. So we have direct cut. So this is where you're going to cut the image out of the card that you actually have on your mat. So let's see if I can just tweak this camera a bit so you can actually see the mat. Now this could be interesting. So I'm going to take that. Let's move my bear. Like that, just so you can see. Hopefully that'll stay put. So, direct cut is where we actually want to cut it out of this piece of card, or if we want to draw onto this piece of card. So it's not always about cutting when we're scanning. The next option is ScanNCut data. Now this is where we want to scan what's on our mat, but we want to cut it out of something else, or if we want to do something else to that shape. So for instance, if you wanted to make a lovely decorative card edge, so you only wanted to use part of that stamped image and the rest you were going to weld a square to, for instance, then that's when you would use ScanNCut data. Okay. Finally, on this page we have scan to USB. Now that's where you want to use your scanner as a scanner. So you literally want to have an image with no tracing whatsoever, and that's what you can use that for. Now the machine's quality of scanning does vary between models. So if you're sort of looking at the top end of the SDX, then you're still not quite at the quality of a proper scanner. But certainly with older models, you're going to be looking at a lower resolution. So typically scanners these days are around 1200 dpi. So the SDX is a little under that, and the CMs are sort of down in the 600-300 range. So by going and dropping down those models, that's where the difference really occurs and really shows. So for what I want to do, I'm going to go to ScanNCut data. So that's going to give me the most options. We have the option of black and white or colour. So if we click on the little spanner, that's going to give us our 2 options as to where we want to go. And we have our scan area. So at the moment that's set to 12 by 18. I know that's going to be wrong, so I'm just going to hop in here and I'm going to change that. Now if you know that you've only got a little 12 by 6 area at the top that you want to scan, then you can select that and you'll make the process a little bit quicker. But for now I'm going to leave it at 12 by 12. I'm going to go OK. Now recognition mode can be a bit misleading. So black and white, you may automatically assume for any black and white image. What I tend to say instead is think of it as levels of contrast between what you want to cut out and the background that it's on. So black and white is like your high contrast setting, where you can clearly see the difference between the image that you want to cut out and your background. Your colour is your low contrast, so this could be that you want to cut something out of a pattern paper, for instance, or that you've done some colouring and you want to cut an area of that out and the 2 colours are relatively close together. Oh, now obviously there is a point where it gets too close and it was not going to pick it up. So if you've got a green on a green, for instance, it's going to struggle with that unless there's a clear definition. But for most cases where we've got something like this, where we've got our high contrast, we can go to black and white. I'm going to go OK. I'm going to press start. Now it's going to throw up a little bit of an alert. Now this is for SDX machines only. And this is where, let's say you've been doing some drawing or some foiling, you've probably switched your scanner lever up so that the actual scan glass is away from your surface so that you're not smudging your ink. And what that's saying is, whoa, you need to lower me back down. Now, if you don't lower back down, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a bad scan. So if sometimes you're finding that your scanner isn't picking up perfectly, try scanning it with the lever in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to put that down and we'll go start. Now, if it does catch the card like it just did, don't worry, as long as it hasn't moved the main body of your card. It's going to spend a little bit of time thinking about it, and then it's going to come up with a preview. So at the moment, you can see that we have our preview here without any tracing. We have three options. So the first is that it's going to go around the outside of the shapes that it can find. So it will go around the outside of your heart here, around the outside of this image here, and around the outside of this image here. The next one is going to look outside and inside. Now, obviously, with this heart image here, that means it's going to go around the outside of your black line, but also around the inside of the black line, which might be what you want. However, when we start to look at images like this, if we've got that selected, it's also going to try and cut out the centres of your flowers. Okay, so just be aware of that. And finally, we have this option here, which is going to turn any line that it finds into a cutting path. So whereas with, say, this option, we're going round the outside and the inside of that black line, we're actually going to be going straight through the middle if we select this option. So for this top left image of the open heart, then that might be exactly what you want it to do. So for instance, if you want it to foil that heart shape, then you would be going for that option. Now the good news is that you don't have to keep going backwards and forwards through that whole scanning process to do all of those things. So first of all, if I say outside, you can see it's going to pick up the outside of our heart shapes and also the outside of our open heart at the top. Now you may go, actually, for now, I don't want that top heart shape to be selected. So we can actually drag that in at the top, and it's going to ignore that top heart shape. You've also got a little bit of noise occurring down here, and that's where it's picking up the dirt on your actual cutting mat. And it is very sensitive, so we're just going to take that up. So it's just going to focus on those two little heart shapes there. Now, you may want to save them like that, but you can even go one step further and go, actually, I'll just do one at a time. So if we take that arrow up here, it's just going to focus on just that one image. And we can go preview. And it says, yep, that's right. We can change contrast if we need to, but because it's done such a good job, it's absolutely fine as it is. You've got this option down here which goes for your smoothing, so how smooth that outside line is. but we can just go OK. Next, it's going to ask you where you want to save that to. So you can save it to the machine, you can send it to Canvas, or you can save it to your USB. So I'm just going to go to USB. It's going to give it a number. You can't change that number until you actually put that USB into a computer. So that could be PC or Mac. You can get adapters so that you can use them onto tablets as well, but they're not all created equal. So I don't want to say that you can definitely do something when potentially there's a risk that you might not be able to. So we can go OK, and we know that that is saved. So then at this point we can move down here. And let's just do that. So at this point it's going to still have trace what we had before. So we need to do that preview again, so we can check that it's picking everything up that it should do. So we've got a few little bits up here, so how can we fix that? If we go into ignore object size, we can increase the amount that it is ignoring. And you'll see as you go up, you're going to actually lose the outline. Then we can go OK, OK again, and we can save that to USB. Now what I would say is when you are doing this, even though we're saving it to USB, it's not for long-term saving. Okay, so what I wouldn't recommend is going actually, yeah, I'm going to save that for posterity and use that again and again and again. I'm only using it in terms of using it for this project that I'm working on. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is legalities and angel policies. Not all companies are comfortable with you working with their stamps in the ScanNCut. That is their choice. At the end of the day, they've designed it and it's up to them to set the licensing. The other one is obviously stamps don't always stamp the same way twice. So now I'm going to come back up to this open heart up the top. And if we go preview, at the moment we know that that is going around the outside, but let's just say I want to foil it. If we go for that third option, it's going to give us a slightly smaller heart. There isn't going to be that much in it, but we can go OK, save that to USB, OK, and we can do inside and outside. And you can see that line gets a little bit stronger, and that's because it's going outside and inside. And again, save that to USB. So at this point, make sure that you've got everything that you want to be able to use. And once you're happy, then you can go home to reset and OK. So that basically takes that scan and goes, right, you're not using that anymore, we can get rid. So let's move you back here. There we go, down a little bit. And swap view. That's all well and good, but let's put that into practice, shall we? Into an actual project. So today I want to work with a stamp that has these little notches in. I'm going to use a stamp platform, and I've done a Z fold card blank. Okay, so this is an adaptable available from Lime 2 Crafts. It's one of the little pretty mica ones. And I have it so my front flap has the score line on the right hand side. Okay, Now I'm going to open it up so that I'm onto that middle panel. So that would be the front of my card here. And I'm going to pop that into my stamp platform so that it's going to fit into this top corner. Okay. I'm going to take my stamp and just line that up. Now, just to make it a little bit easier, I'm just going to pop a magnet just on the open flap, just so it's not flapping about too much, and one just on the card there. Now, because my rubber stamp is cling mounted, just make sure that you're on the rubber side of your tonic platform. And we're going to open it up. Let's just bring you a bit further forward. There we go. A bit more like it. And for today's, I'm going to be using the black squid ink, when I can say it. And I'm going to stamp that down. Now, because this is a shimmer piece of cardstock, I'm just going to stamp that twice, which is why we use a stamp platform. Like so. And we can clean our stamp with just some plain old water and a bamboo cloth or kitchen towel. So, and let's remove my stamped piece of card. And there we go. Just going to flick that over for a moment. Hopefully you can all see me all right. Not had any chat for a while. So let's take my card piece off. Now, because I want to use this positioning as a reference point to get it to cut through onto this front bit, what I'm actually going to do is think very carefully about where I want this flap to go. Now, what I would say is I'm going to pop my card into the top left, I think. Then I can fold the flap over and just release that card from underneath. So hopefully I should be pretty close. It may not be 100% perfect, but I'm going to show you how we can get around that. So, to make life a little bit easier, let's just swivel you around there again. And line this up into this top corner. Okay. Now bear in mind at this point, this top section is still flapping a little bit. So I'm going to use a tiny bit of masking tape just to hold that down to my mat. I'm going to do the same at the bottom. Just because otherwise there's nothing holding that top piece of card. Okay. So, change view. Go Going back to close cam. Just check comments are updated. And we're going to go to scan. Now this time, because I still want to cut it out of the same piece of card, albeit that it's going to move slightly, I'm going to do direct cut. I want to scan it in the machine rather than send it to canvas, mainly because it should be absolutely fine for picking this up. And let's go start and see how it goes. Okay, so now we have our card in place. We can go OK, and you can see it's going to pick up quite a few different bits and pieces. So for starters, I'm going to bring in my preview. Next we can go to ignore object size, and we can put those up. Okay, so you can see that we've still got a little bit of a double line around here. So that goes back to our issue with having the dots. So I thought it would be a good thing to show you the difference. So let's just very lightly pop in a pencil line, and we'll scan it again. So go across. If you're not happy with something, go back, OK, and repeat the process again. And there we go, we can see straight away the difference just by doing those couple of little pencil lines. And we can go back to ignore object size and make sure that we get rid of these couple of little bits up here. And all that is the masking tape. So let's go OK. OK again. Now it's going to give you a few other options. So bearing in mind that we want to cut this out from our front flap, we can actually use our offset to kind of mitigate any chance that you might not get this quite lined up in the right place. So I'm just going to remove my masking tape. I'm going to start to fold over that top flap just so I know exactly where I'm heading. Gently remove it from the mat. This top flap we know should line up back into that same corner. Okay, and I'm going to press that down. Now again, because we've got this section here that's going to be too long, we can just pop that down with a bit more masking tape. And if your roller bar's in the way, we're just going to use a metal palette knife just to take that through and just rub that down onto your mat. Okay, so now that we've lined that up, I'm going to go to offset, which is the two little circles, and we can offset inside or outside. So I want to go outside this time. And yeah, one notch should be enough, so I'm going to go OK. Now, if you're wondering what this button here does, then what that actually means is rather than tracing the individual shape, you could put that heart in a circle and so forth. So that's a useful way of creating your own toppers. But for something like this where we want to do an aperture, you want to make sure that that top option is selected. And if there's any edits you want to do, you can go in there and do that. But that is literally all we need to do for this one. So there are a few little fiddly bits of the design, so I'm just going to use my vinyl blade instead. Pop that into the holder. So the vinyl blade is the one with the light blue cap, and we're going to select cut, and we can go to start. And thank you, Sally Ann, for the 200 stars. Okay, so at this point you want to just check that your aperture has cut all the way around. Yes, it has. It releases from the mat. I'm going to put that down in place. Okay, I'm going to take the blade out of my machine and we can swap to a pen holder. So go for the 3D thumbprints one, nice and easy, and let's pick a colour. So let's go silver, and just make sure that you've got your pen flowing nicely before we start. So if it's not been used for a while, just give it a little squiggle onto some paper, and then the last check is just to hold the pen vertically and just draw and just make sure that you're getting a good strong line. And I pop my pen into my universal pen holder. So if you want a bit more information on how to use that, then we did a really good stream last week before. So I'm just going to tighten that up in there, make sure that it grates, pop the two lines to the back, and I'm just going to push those back a little bit so that we're not getting any interference. And give it a wiggle, and in we go. So I'm going to go OK, and I'm going to go back. So now we can go to offset again, and let's go out another amount. So this time we're going to go to 0.08 and go OK. OK again. Now with lines that we create on our machine, they are always draw and cut lines. So we can actually go to draw and start. It's going to just throw up an issue, just saying attach appropriate holder, just go OK and start again. Now, remember how I was saying about the scanner lever? This is where it's going to prompt you. So I'm going to lift that up. So that's whenever you're using a gel pen, a paint pen, anything where you know it's not going to dry quick enough, then just make sure you lift that scan glass up. There are some pens you can get away with, so things like alcohol pens will dry quicker and you don't have to worry quite so much, but certainly for gel pens you do. Okay, okay, and start. So, make it back overhead, lift up. Bit upside down, sorry about that. It's because usually on my desk it needs to be upside down to be the right way around, which is bizarre. Okay, so let me go back to close cam just while I adjust this so it doesn't make you totally dizzy. There we go, and back down just a So with that done, we can take out our pen holder. Just going to unscrew that. And we're good to go. So let's take that off the mat. And we have. Now if you find that this is slightly off, you can always just readjust this score line here, but I don't think that's too bad by the time that you have it open. Let's pop off the masking tape because we don't need that now. So I just need to do a little bit of colouring, and I might just do a double fold in here. So that's good for if you're doing things like a shaker card, for instance. So if you want to do a nice quick and easy shaker card, pop a double score just in this section here, so they're fairly close together. And I'll just swap over view so you can see a bit better. So double score line, so that you're putting one just inside there. Then put your foam tape all the way around there with a bit of acetate in your window, and you've got a shaker card. So let's do my colouring. So this is a good way to go if you know that an image is going to take you a long time to colour, and you want to make sure that you get your cutting right first before you do your colouring. I'm just going to fade that outside edge out. And if you want to stay and watch some colouring, you can do. I'll do that for a little bit, just so that you can see the process. So I'm going to come back in with the pink, and again stay lightly just over your paper. I'm just going to go back to the red and just blend the two colours together. So the lighter colour almost helps you kind of float your pencil when you come back to doing your darker shade. I'm just going to go around that outside line again, so get a nice bit of strong colour. And same down here. With your pencil crayons, you should always keep them nice and sharp, and you'll find this easier to do. So lightly, then a bit stronger around the edge, change to the pink and blend it out, and then just deepen the colour with your red. So I'm going to go and do this top section so you can see it's all done. So, that's for pink. Now for something like this where you don't really want a lot of shadow work, you can do that with two colours just fine. If you want to add shadows, then you just need to add a complementary colour. So you go through and do all the sections like so. You then want to bear in mind anywhere where a shadow would fall from your central object as well. So in here, just going to go through and do a little bit of pink. And we can always just add a bit of red when we need to. And also, very carefully, work your way through your image, just making sure that you're kind of popping that shadow in to kind of help your image come alive and not a puff of paper. Like so. And pop another section under here. And under here. And you just want to go careful in this background because there's a few sections there where you've got leaves and things that can be a bit misleading. So I tend to try and work my way back from the edge just so I can see where I'm going, like so. So there's a leaf that comes round here, another one that's under there, so you won't see any pink in that section. Then we can just swap over and just do tiny amounts of that darker red. Just tidying up that shadow and making it pop a little bit. There. Without too much fuss. So then you can decide if you want to colour in the petals. Because you don't always have to do everything in an image. In actual fact, I think if I just did that bottom area there, just leave those flowers white. So if anybody wants to know what pencils I'm using the Castle Arts Botanical collection. And we're nearly there. So I'm going to do one more bit of stamping and scanning. I'm going to use the little heart shape that we scanned in earlier and use it to cut out some text. And we can have that floating if you want to. So far that's our little card design. So let's use a little bit more white card, don't waste anything. I'm going to pull out a very tiny little sentiment and let's grab my stamp platform. And I'm going to stamp it so it's fairly in the middle, because you want to give yourself enough room to kind of play with the size of your shape. Back in with this squid ink. So let's just see if I can just move it slightly over. There we go. It's not quite where I want it, but I can rejig it after. And I'm just going to grab a kitchen towel or a cotton bud and just clean up where ink's gone around the edge of that stamp. And there. And just straighten it up a little bit. looks okay here. Sorry you're having a few issues there. So there's our sentiment. We can take that back across to our ScanNCut. Just take our card aperture off. Pop that into the machine. So this is where we can either use our other type of scanner, which is our background scan, and do it that way, or you can use the direct cut with that cut out shape to actually cut that out. And have a lovely day here, and hopefully chat later. So I'm going to go OK. I'm going to go back home. OK. I'm going to go retrieve data, USB. I'm going to go down to the bottom and up a notch. So I want this first heart, which is going to be the one that we did with that single line trace. I'm going to go OK. And obviously that's going to be way too big for what we want. But first of all, I can do my background scan. We can change how dark that scan is so that we can see it clearer, like so. We can go to Edit, Object Edit, Resize, and we can take that down, and we know that heart is going to stay in proportion. So that might have gone a little bit too far. Let's just pop that up just a little. Go OK, OK, and then as usual when we're positioning, if we haven't got something quite the right place, we can use our arrow keys to nudge. Go OK, OK, OK. So many OKs with this machine. And I'm going to pop in final blade and off we go. Okay. And with that, we should have a nice little sentiment that we can actually apply either to the inside of our card or have it floating in our aperture like so. So let me go back overhead so you can see that close up. There we go. So you can have that floating in there, or we can actually pop that inside and have that as our sentiment inside. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and it's taught you a few different things that we can do with the scanner, just as a standalone scanner without having to go to canvas. What I will do is also show you the difference that the enhanced image tracing can make when you are using canvas. So take care for now, and on Friday we will be back with some Pretty Gets Gritty. So this time I'm going to be doing some card making, so it's going to be lots of die cuts, and I might be doing a little bit of gel printing just to have something a little bit different. So take care for now, and I will see you then. If you have any questions in the meantime, don't be afraid to drop us a message, and I will get back to you as soon as I can.